starting off in the bathroom because we're going to do a little bit of spray painting. And I thought I should, really go back to basics, and I'm going to try to make a series of tutorials just on really basic stuff, because I forget that some things that I think are very intuitive may not, just be common knowledge. So I'm going to start off this tutorial, and we're going to start by making a palette. And all a palette is a surface that you can paint on. Usually glass palettes. I'm a big fan of glass palettes myself. And the reason why I use glass, I can show you once we get back to the studio, is that it's easy to scrape off old paint from a glass palette. So today I've got a piece of really hard plastic, and the reason why I'm using the hard plastic is because it's what I had around, and it's the easiest way to show you how to set up a really simple palette. Now, the first thing you're going to need is a piece of glass, right? This is, like I said, this is plastic, which is kind of crappy. But the best thing to do is to get a piece of glass. I have 2 glass palettes, but I've already sprayed them. So anyway, this will do for this demonstration. And if you don't know where to find a piece of glass, a really good tip is to go to a thrift store. And they have a lot of times in those frames, they'll have like really crappy old photographs that have been framed and stuff like that. And a lot of times those have a sheet of glass in them. So you can buy, a really cheap old crappy picture, take out the glass, and then spray paint the back, and you'll have a nice palette to work from. Now, as you can see, I've got this spray paint here. It has a number 2 on it, and that means it's my mid. I have 4 gradations of black to white spray paint, or no, 5. I have 5 gradations of black to white spray paint that I use, and this one is basically my middle tone, right? So this is the middle gray, and the reason why we use a middle gray for the background on our palette is because when we're mixing our colors, we don't want our whole palette to be too dark, because then we're going to kind of be mixing our colors to that dark and not to our canvas, which is generally white or a little bit off-white. So we start with the gray so we can work up and down, and we always know this gray is in the middle, okay? So we can adjust our values when we start mixing our colors accordingly. And I'll go through that later, but let's first get this piece of plastic spray painted. How's it going? Back in the studio, we've got our piece of plastic ready, and you'll see we spray painted on this side, and we don't want to mix on the spray painted side. So you just flip it over, and you're going to be doing your mixing on the shiny side here. I'll just show you my other 2 palettes that I have here. This is actually a piece of broken glass from a window, and I just put some tape around it and set up my palette. This palette here, these are all transparent colors. So I use one palette for my transparent colors, and then I have another palette for my opaque colors. So we've got lead white, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium red. This is ultramarine blue, which is transparent but does the job. And then here we have the dreaded black, which I've talked previous about, that we should really use in moderation. I have a little bit of alizarin crimson here, and raw umber here, and then this is a phthalo blue, which will give you a little bit different blues, as we've discussed in a previous video as well. Now, just to give you an idea of where this information comes from, if anybody's seen this book, it's the big fat artist handbook. It's got everything about oil painting and different varnishes and different oils that you can use, and if you want to do things in egg tempera, it's basically a big fat recipe book. And I was lucky enough to go to a great school in Lyme, Connecticut, called the Lyme Academy of Fine Arts, And my teacher, who actually taught me a lot of this stuff, is this guy, Stephen Sheehan, who is teaches at Yale University as well. So this information is actually worth a ton of money, even though it's very, very basic. This is the cutting edge of academic painting. I guess it's not really cutting edge because it hasn't changed that much in 400 years. But let's get into it now, and I'm going to show you how to set up your palette and start using this big piece of plastic here as a place where you can mix a lot of different value ratios, gradations, right? So when we were talking before about colors and mixing, we're also talking about the value of a color, and the value is simply the darkness of a color. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to just go through my grays, and then I'm going to mix up a yellow and a blue and some flesh tones as well. So we'll have three different value scales. Now this is a really handy thing you can make. This is a little value scale that I made, and as you can see, there's holes in it. Looking through it, you can even see my shirt, and if I squint, I can kind of see where that red is. It looks like it's about, I'm going backwards. I can't see. Can't see in the video, but it looks like the red is around this one here, maybe. But anyway, you can look through these holes, and then you can squint your eyes, and you can start placing where the values are on this value scale. Now this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are 7 gradations. I don't have white on here. This is the closest I have to white. So this is 7 gradations right here. You can do this with 9 gradations, you can do it with 15 gradations, but really I don't think you need more than 5, to be honest. So we're gonna jump into it now, and I'm gonna show you how to mix up some paint and mix up some value scales of some different colors. So as you can see, I've got my handy little palette knife right here. This is just a knife you can get at pretty much any art store will have these. And we use this to mix our paint. I know in the acrylic video I was mixing with my brush, but that's because acrylics dry super fast. So with oil paint, we have the advantage of being able to keep the paint wet for longer, so we can use the palette knife to mix our colors. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have a mixing area down here, and then I'm going to make the gradation here at the top. And you'll see, I'll do a close-up of how I'm actually holding the palette knife and how I'm mixing the palette knife as well, so you can get a good close-up view of how this works. So the first thing you want to do is you just get some black, and we're not going to start. Our first color is not going to be perfect. And I'm just mixing the paint with the palette knife here, and then you scrape it up. And when you scrape it up, you're going to get an excess of paint on the top. So now I'm going to take this color, and I see that on my value scale I have here, it's about a 3. So this is basically our midtone. You might not be able to see it very well on the palette because it's really close to the midtone of our palette. So we're going to go ahead and put that in the middle. Now, we can go up or down from this. So let's go down. Just going to take a little bit more black. I'm sure you'll be noticing that I'm using the dreaded black, and in previous videos I tell you not to use black, but instead mix your own black. And I can show how to do that in a later video on how not to use any black at all and instead use raw umber to create all this. Now this one's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit lighter than our middle tone here. So we want to go down the scale. So we're gonna get some more black here. Mix that in. And that's still not dark enough. This white that I'm using is titanium white. which is a very, very strong color. So sometimes you're going to have to use more black than you think you have to in order to get one value down. So now we're starting to get down here. You know? So we're going down the scale here. So we've got one scale down. Let's go a little bit further down. It's important you can use the residual that's left on your palette knife. And you can see that titanium is really so... The titanium really is so powerful that you can just use almost just the residual of that's on your palette here. So now this is giving us a really dark gray. I'd say that's about 1, 2, 3. This is a little bit too dark. So let's take this back. I'm going to steal a little bit more titanium white. And you might be thinking, like, why are we spending so much time making paint or mixing our paint before we paint? But really, you should take 30 minutes before you start a painting and really get into what are the values in that painting first, and then you mix those. So this looks more on par. Yo, that looks good. And we're going to go take it down one more. This is going to be almost black. This is just one step up from black. And there we've got it now. So now we've got our three values, tones if you want to call them, underneath our middle tone, and now we want to go up the scale. So let's grab a nice chunk of white here. You can see how powerful that white is. I really didn't take that much, but and we're starting to go up the ladder. Take a little bit more white. And this is the easiest one to do, just black to white. This is a good place to start. Make that first. The black to white is the easiest value scale to deal with. And as you can see, this does take time. And that's because we forget often, people often think about, you know, how painting is this nice meditative activity, and it can be if you want to be like a, you know, so-called Sunday painter. That's fine. You can use it for your for a relaxation technique, but it's really important that you get into the discipline. You know, put up a picture of Bruce Lee on your wall and remind yourself that painting really is, it's about not being lazy and doing stuff like this. Especially with oil painting. I mean, there's so many variables to consider: the opacity of the paint, how strong your colors are, if you're mixing synthetic pigments with real pigments like cadmiums, as opposed to something like Winsor red. Now this is a little bit too close. We're going to take it up a little bit more. The cadmium red, like I was saying, the cadmium red is going to be way stronger than something like a synthetic color like a Winsor red. And I choose to use cadmiums, and I even still use flake white, which is lead. But some people are kind of worried about that health risks of that. I'm worried about making nice paintings, so I don't really think about it that much. Maybe I should. Probably because I'm still young. I still have the luxury of not having to worry about what health effects could happen. But the good thing to remember from if you are using lead white or some of these colors is that as long as you don't touch it or sand it with sandpaper, you're pretty much okay. See, now this guy just doesn't want to go up the ladder. You really got to put some more white in there. This gray is just, this is what happens sometimes. You got to put in a lot more white just to make this gradation than we've dealt with so far. There we go. So now we have our nice little grayscale from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different tones there, 8 different values. And we've still got a little bit of paint on our palette knife, so let's get rid of that. And we can use this base, these base values here to start to see what the values of our other colors are going to be. You can see why plastic isn't the absolute best. Glass would be much better. I'm sure there's some people shuddering at the fact that I'm using plastic and not glass, but I'll learn to live with it. Now, what I'm going to do after this one is I'm going to show you a simple value scale in blue. So let's get some ultramarine blue here, some raw umber, and a little bit of white. So I'm going to plop these down over here just so I still keep my mixing area open. And we're going to try to make a grayscale with this white, with this blue. So in this case, raw umber is going to be our color that we add to blue to make it darker, just like in the mixing black video. So we're going to take some of this blue, and the first step is, where does this blue sit? Just by itself, straight out of the tube, where does this blue sit? We're going to squint our eyes, and it sits around here. So this is just blue. It might look a little bit too dark even. Getting a little bit of transparency, and that's messing with me. Yeah, that's actually pretty dark. So this blue is going to be one step lower. So this is our beginning point that we start from. Now, I mean, you could mix up some blues if you were working on a sky or something like that, and clouds, and you wanted to have a lot of different variations out there. And the reason why we pre-mix on the palette is because you want to get out of the habit of mixing everything on your painting. One of the greatest pieces of advice I learned in school was that your palette should look like, an X-ray, not an X-ray, I don't know how to say it, but your palette should be a graph of all the colors that you put together in your final painting. So now in order to make this dark, we're going to do like we did before and just add some raw umber to the mix. You can really see these are both transparent colors, so you can see how much application also affects the darkness of your color. That's too much. There we go. So now we got to step down, and that's going to be our black, right? So that's our darkest blue that we can go. And I just added a little bit of raw umber for that. Now I've got raw umber on my palette knife. So let's clean off that raw umber. And we're going to go up the scale. Grab a little bit of blue, just a tinge. Seriously, just be chill with your white. You see how little you need there? And now we're going up the ladder. Now this blue is a little bit too intense for me. Just a little bit too strong. So I'm gonna go and steal a little bit from my other palette I've got here. I'm just gonna steal a tad of yellow ochre. And what this yellow ochre will do is cut down the intensity of the color. Whoa, just hit that white. That screwed me. Okay, so we're gonna have to go one step up before we go back down. And I'm not too into using really intense colors because I'm more into traditional painting and traditional palettes. But if you want to use if you want to have bright colors, then by all means just use the bright colors in your paintings. You can see I'm squinting now, and I'm looking at the blue on my palette knife, and I'm comparing it to these grays. This blue is right in between these two right now. A little bit too dark for that, a little bit too light for that. So let's take a little bit more blue. I know this seems anal, but this is painting, you know? Painting is a very systematic process. And if you don't have a long attention span, it can easily you can easily try to take shortcuts and you'll get in trouble for it. There we go. That's about right. Take this blue off around the corner. That's about right. Now let's take her up a notch. It's gonna be a bit, wow, that was a serious plop. That was seriously way too much white. You can see how powerful this titanium white is. But no need to worry because we can just skip ourselves up the scale. So find out where it is. Boom. We just jumped one step. Right on that gray. So we'll take it back down. Just scooping up the paint with the palette knife here. Scooping up the paint with the palette knife here. A little bit light. Now I'm mixing a very small amount of paint here because I don't want to waste my paint on a tutorial, but you know, obviously mix the amount of paint for the size of your final painting. Now we're getting on par. There we go. There's our next blue up. A little bit intense. I'm starting to see this light is actually, that's way too light. You know, we're checking ourselves all the time here, but that's closer. Yep, that's one up. So we'll pop that over there. Yeah. Now we can kind of take a mix of these two. We can find that color in the middle. And this is basic painting right here. Good. A little bit light. A little bit light. To start getting in the habit of really using your eye, and you know, you're seeing everything in black and white. Really important to see value in color if you want to paint, because that's all painting is. Yeah, that looks better. That's closer. There we go to that. And this is going to be a lot of white here, but where it's okay, we're taking our blue again. We're going up the seesaw to success. Checking it. Pretty good. Pretty good. Make that a little bit bigger so the camera can see it. Yeah, that's not bad. So let's take a little bit more white. We're getting into our top blue here. I told you, this is a monster of a video, but gotta learn it. There's basic stuff here. Boom, got it. So now with this, I've created my my scale of blues, and you know, if I had a lot more paint, then I could just start using this as my guide. You know, now you're thinking like, oh, what, you know, if you go in with a brush, you know, you're going to obviously take a lot of the paint off the ground here. But just leave a little corner. You know, just leave a little corner, and you're always going to know, I need to match this blue again. You know, if I got to mix up more, got to hit that blue. So now that we've done our blue, let's try something a little bit more advanced. And let's try to see if we can bust out. I'm sure this crackling sounds interesting. Let's see if we can bust out some flesh tones. Right? Now for flesh tones, a really simple way to do it is to grab some yellow ochre, grab some cadmium blue, and this is going to be a little bit intense, so again we're using the complementary color. Using the complementary color is going to take down the intensity of our color and give us more of that brown we're looking for, because there's not too many orange people in the world. Maybe in New Jersey, some fake tans. So I'm going to start with this as my base. All this is yellow ochre, a little bit of cadmium red, and then some ultramarine blue to cut down the intensity. So let's see where we're at the scale here. This is where it gets tough, because you can't let your preconceived ideas about a color mess with seeing just how dark it is. So it's definitely darker than this. Definitely lighter than that. Let's go for this as our mid-tone here. Yep. And now we can just go up the ladder, take a little bit of white. It's a big jump. So I think we're gonna have to tune this down a little bit. Yeah, that's more on par there. Definitely way lighter than that. Way lighter than that too. Take some more of this mix I've got. Tune this down a little bit more. This is actually our highest. That's up there. So, gonna have to steal some more yellow ochre, steal some more cad red, go into our base again. This is a little bit lighter already, so this might even be our next tone up. Yo, bam. got it there. Now I'm just gonna, I know this has to be darker, so I'm just gonna steal a tinge of ultramarine blue. Maybe take this red up a little bit more. Ooh, cad red is powerful. Oh boy, now we're going to the red fair. We're going to hell. It's going to hell in a handbasket here. It's alright, we got more yellow ochre. Yeah, that's not bad. Still in the middle there. Now let's go down and take more blue. It's going to give us a really deep flesh tone. And there's millions of ways. I mean, you can use burnt umber and take it up, you know, with a little bit of blue in your darks if you want, but you know, this is just one option of many. That's still a little light. Take a little bit more ultramarine blue. You know, just get in the habit. You gotta see the difference between a 2 and a 5. So, yeah, it's close. Big change there, isn't it? This is closer to here. Yeah, that's farther down. And there's all sorts of different tints you can use. I mean, you can go more pink. You can use a little bit of alizarin. Still too light. Sometimes you do things that aren't very intuitive, like adding what you think is a bright color, like a red, but that red will actually take down your value scale. Let's see, where are we? That's alright. It's an okay gradation there. And for our super dark, I'll just cheat, steal a little bit of raw umber. Leave all the rest of this in here. Where's my blue? Here it is. I got these other palettes off camera here. I'm dipping into. And not to give you too much information, but this value scale here is a very warm value scale. And when we talk about the temperature of a color, this can actually even go lighter. These are closer. Add a little bit more brown to that. We're getting down there, it's starting to look gray. These are much closer, and then we just need our finish. Now what often happens when you're painting is, yeah, it's not bad. When we talk about local color, we're talking about the color of an object, right? So people, my flesh tone here, has a certain flesh tone to it. I'm a white Caucasian person of Slavic descent. So, you know, I'm going to be more in this realm. Whereas you can go farther into the global south and you can just go down down the steps for if you're painting an African person or something like that. You can go further down and you can start working on those flesh tones for those chocolate flesh tones. So yeah, that's it. You know, we went down went up the ladder here: grayscale, blue scale, a basic flesh tone, and now when we're painting, you know, let's imagine I'm doing a painting here. Let me show you what happens wrong a lot of times is people start mixing all these colors together. You can't really see that because this is exactly the same color. But what I'm trying to do here with making you mix your paint before you start your painting is that you just need to get in the habit of having these values cemented in your head. There is a difference between this and this. You know, you might not be able to see it that much. It's a very small gradation, but these are different colors. And if you're mixing this every time on your palette and then you go back to your painting, you know, these type of subtle differences are much more difficult to see in your painting. So we want to mix them on our palette first. So, hope you enjoyed it. I don't think I can get my head in here. There I am. Hope you enjoyed it. This might be a two-part video from the looks of it. It's a pretty long video. So, yeah, mix up your colors and, you know, aim for the stars.